Hello, good evening. My name is Fabian Cruz, and this is for We the People. I know it's been several weeks since my last video, and as we are all painfully aware, we are in the worst pandemic times in more than a century. And unfortunately, the world has not been handling this well. There were a lot of measures and a lot of steps that can have and should have been taken sooner and more strongly, and they weren't. A lot of people have suffered. A lot of people have lost their lives. A lot of people are currently sick, and we continue to pray for their recovery. But unfortunately, there's a lot that should have been done that we can make sure is done now and in the future. This is exactly what I was referring to, that we need to hold our politicians accountable for what they've done and also what they haven't done, and things that we need to be done better. And one of those things is we need healthcare for everyone, because having healthcare tied to a person's unemployment doesn't work. Because a lot of people have recently been laid off due to the preventative measures taken to minimize the risk and the effect of this pandemic. And had we had a system in place already, which we've had the opportunity to do, then many more people who have been deemed to be essential workers, and they are, people who work in the grocery stores, doctors and nurses and other hospital staff, people who work in delivery, whether it's the gig economy or for the major companies, that we need them to ensure our way of life continues. And we should also be paying them a wage appropriate for them being essential. As I had mentioned previously, I'm an electrician. And with me being an electrician, people need electricity. People need to be able to power their homes, to refrigerate their medicines, to cook themselves and their families' food. And there are many people who aren't unionized, who aren't protected, and now that they've been laid off or that their hours have been reduced, that they're no longer in a position to have health care. And unfortunately, as much as I'm grateful that we do have Medicare and its various forms in the different states, the system is piecemeal at best. And this is unsustainable, because that puts too much burden on the individual states, and it puts too much burden on the individuals trying to make sure that they can be seen, that they can be treated, that they can be tested. And other countries have demonstrated that not only is it possible, but that it's necessary. Because unfortunately, the last I checked the numbers, as of yesterday, which is April 14th, America currently amounts to 1 out of 3 cases of this pandemic in the world. And on top of that, we currently account for 1/5 of all deaths that have occurred, while only comprising 1/10 of all of those who have recovered. And giving these very stark statistics, it's shameful, because our country is much too wealthy and much too well resourced that our healthcare system is not more comprehensive and better run. Unfortunately, they tell us that having this free market approach to healthcare is what stirs competition, but the only competition seems to be who can get the best stock prices and the most profit for their shareholders and not provide the best care to the people. And that's what we need right now. And while I appreciate that the Democratic Party wants to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and Medicare, I don't believe that's enough anymore. We need universal health care. We need a single payer healthcare system. Because when you have those who are most vulnerable, or those who are taking care of the most vulnerable, what can they do when we still don't have mandatory paid sick leave in our country? We don't have mandatory paid parental leave in our country. That we don't have universal child care of some sort, because these people who are essential, and even those who have not been deemed essential, they, in order to be able to provide for themselves and their family, they need to be able to work. And with the school shut down because of safety reasons, and I'm not saying that that was not a good idea, because it was, and it is, that we need to utilize the tools that we have available, the technology that we have available, so that we can enable parents to be able to work, for kids to be able to learn, for those who are in need of medical assistance to receive it, and not have to be worried about copays and deductibles and all of these other fees that are associated with our current healthcare system, because they can't afford it. People are worrying about how they're going to pay rent, how they're going to feed themselves until they get unemployment, for those who are eligible, for those who may or may not receive food stamps. This is ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. And the fact that it took something so dramatic in order to allow people who previously had been more or less insulated from this to realize that we need this now more than ever. And with the Democratic Party now narrowing down their candidate, unfortunately, he's not progressive enough. His platform is not progressive enough. And I don't believe that he's going to choose a vice president who will cover that gap. So we need to put their feet to the fire. And we need to show them that we are essential, that there is no America without the people. And unfortunately, while many celebrities have in fact donated a lot of their time and money to help different causes, to provide for those who are in need, it's not enough. And not to say that they owe people to do more, but people need access to more capital to do more for themselves. And if that means higher taxation, if that means better allocation of profits, then so be it. Because the truth of the matter is, as I stated, that while productivity is up in our country, the wage is not, and has not remotely kept up. So now is the time for us, the people, to join together to demand of our politicians, no matter what party you support, no matter what ideology that you advocate for, we all need to realize that if we don't work together, the pandemic will be the least of our concerns, because the world is changing, and no amount of ignoring that change is going to stop it. So it's up to us to take our fate into our own hands and to take our government and our country back. We need to take it back and put our feet down and hold everyone accountable, especially ourselves. Again, my name is Fabian Cruz, and this is for we, the people.